Hey, everybody. Welcome to EduMatch. So follow along with us at podcast.edumatch.org/tweet talk. Today is the beginning of the EduMatch EduSnap 17 Bonanza. So we have three authors back to back in 24 hours, and then we're going to do it again on Wednesday. So today is the first day that we're doing that. And we're actually also playing a game of Where's Waldo as I traveled down 95 South, leaving Ed Camp, New Jersey. So big shout out to everybody who is in Ed Camp, New Jersey. It's great to see everyone who is there. So anyway, without any further ado, I have to introduce our amazing guest. We all know her and love her. So Tracy Brady, welcome to EduMatch.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. It's great to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tracy. So Tracy's a French and Spanish teacher in Elmira, New York. Her professional passions include technology, showing students today have the power to affect change in the world, and making connections of all shapes, sizes, and varieties, which she endeavors to do formally through professional organizations like NYSAFLT and NECTFL, somewhat less formally through attendance at ed camps, and regularly through Twitter chats, Boxer groups, and other more flexible but no less valuable venues. Off duty, she is mother to two beautiful adult daughters and an aspiring karaoke ninja. So,
That's right.
yes, and I have seen the karaoke ninja prowess firsthand. So,
In New Jersey, as a matter of fact.
absolutely in New Jersey. So, yeah, but it's great to have you here. So, again, welcome to
Well, thank
EduMatch.
you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, oh, it's a pleasure. So let's dive a little more into your background. So, what's your background, and who or what inspired you to go into education?
Into education. That would be my sixth grade teacher, Jane McCrowan, who within the last couple of months I actually was able to finally track down and we exchanged a couple of emails. And it's been really kind of a long time coming that I really wanted to let her know what an impact she had on my life. She put me in front of my first computer, a TRS-80, if I can kind of date myself, when we used to save all of our data on cassettes, audio cassettes. Very different. We've come a long way from there. But she really engaged all of us in learning, and that truly transformed the experience for me.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. So it's always great to hear these stories about how other educators inspire us, because that's like what we do with our students. Yeah, yeah.
We try to.
We definitely do. So you speak how many languages?
French, Spanish, and English. Very little bit of Italian, and that would be it.
Okay, so all that counts. All that counts. So multiple languages. So how did you become so interested in languages?
Well, it's interesting. In high school, I dropped French after French 3, after I took the Regents exam. And that was when I was a sophomore. My senior year, the boy I was dating had an exchange student visit from France, and she did not speak any English. And I was the only one who had enough French to understand her. So I just kind of translated for the 3 weeks that she was there, and I loved it. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to continue studying French or pick it back up when I got to college. And I really, at that point, had no intention of becoming a teacher. Um, and then I started working with kids in a marching band as an instructor, and the pieces all kind of fell together. And I decided to go back, get my master's in education, and became a French teacher.
Wow, that is such a cool story. Yeah, sometimes we end up in places that we never saw ourselves, like we never
No.
previewed. Yeah, so that's cool. That's cool. So, all right, so we're going to dive in a little bit to your chapter. I'm super excited about it. So you're a contributing author, not only for the first time and for the second time. So 2 out of 2, batting 1,000. So that is awesome. So what can people expect to read in your chapter this go round?
Um, the basics of social media, a lot of the most typical platforms, and some other platforms that teachers might be able to leverage with their students. Quite a bit about digital citizenship and all that that entails. I particularly love the idea of students and their digital legacy, which is a phrase that Tammy Neal, one of our other contributing authors, coined. At least she's the first one I ever heard use it, and I just loved it. Um, some resources for access, because that can be students who don't have access at home for financial reasons. I have a few ideas for how we can get them connected. so that there can be more equity, because it truly is a game changer when students don't have that access outside the classroom. Some ways that you can encourage your students to be safe, but use it. And if you are uncomfortable using social media, how to let your students lead. It can really, truly be an opportunity to have your students take a leadership role, and you don't, it's okay to let go and not know all the answers, and let your students show you the way. And actually that can be a tremendous lift to students who may not be A students in the content, but can really have this way to shine because this is more of a talent of theirs. Um, Things like building a PLN, a professional learning network, that we as educators do. But it's never too soon for students to start building their own among their peers, among older students in the same content areas or with the same interests, or even with professionals. And I also, like to share stories that I've heard from other educators as I've given presentations on this. So I kind of try to, give a big survey in one chapter of how you can leverage social media and really use it in a positive way in the classroom.
Well, that is really cool. And I mean, talking about learners building their own PLN, that is awesome. So, as a lifelong learner, please tell us about your own journey in connecting with other educators and what kinds of things have you learned along the way?
I would say the most important thing I've learned along the way is that being connected really can, it it elevates your learning to a level that you couldn't possibly conceive of prior to connecting with other educators. I started on Twitter probably 7 or 8 years ago. And from there, I learned about ed camps, started going to ed camps. And then the next pivotal moment was going to the Ed Camp Leader Summit, where I connected with EduMatch, which is not just because I'm talking to Sarah, but truly it has been a game changer. There are so many amazing educators, and from EduMatch, I met so many other fantastic people connected in other directions. So it's exponential, the ways that you can connect with people once you start. And at times it can be like trying to drink out of a fire hose because there are so many people and so much information. And I know, Sarah, you've experienced this too. Sometimes you just kind of need to cater to the introvert in you and step back a little and process. But that's the beautiful thing with EduMatch and really any of the professional groups that I've been involved with. Everybody respects that. And, you bow out for a while, even a long while, and you come back in and it's as if you never left. It's, you've called it like a professional learning family, I think, or something along those lines with the word family. And it really, truly is. We build each other up. There is never any tearing down. So it's learning, it's growing, and it's just, feeling good about ourselves and about the differences that we're making. And it has, times when I've had, been really down on myself, I know I can always pop into, one the Boxer group or another, or hop out on Twitter and say, hey, this is going on. Has anybody else experienced this? And of course, other people have. So, what I might feel alone, but I'm not alone. And even just knowing that and realizing it just helps tremendously.
Absolutely. And speaking of our learning family, just want to give a huge shout out to Peggy George, who is watching along with us. So, hi,
Yay! Hey,
Peggy.
Peggy.
So I just saw her on Twitter. So awesome, awesome, awesome. And it's also funny that you mentioned about the introvert part, like knowing when to just kind of, take a step back and then come back in. It's funny because I remember the day that we met at that Ed Camp Organizer Summit. And it's funny that we actually started talking because I remember being in my introvert like zone, and you are also an introvert, but all of a sudden we
Yes,
started talking and we became fast friends. So
I
that is,
know.
yeah, so that is so cool. All right, so you were talking about how you teach your students about digital citizenship. So tell us a little bit about how does that process work in your class? Like, how do your students learn how to be good citizens?
It's really interesting because I think that there's this notion that with social media, it's taking away from social skills that students have because they're texting, and they aren't learning how to deal with people face to face. But social media isn't, particularly now, we're kind of moving past the idea where it is all texting. Because now there's FaceTime and there's Skype and there's Google Hangouts like we're doing right now. And I was in a situation where we were, and kind of still are, it's kind of a never ending project. My students organized a clothing drive to benefit the earthquake survivors in Mexico City. And part of that, the woman in Mexico City who is going to receive the clothing there, we did a Skype call with her so that my students could talk firsthand. So they needed to learn face-to-face etiquette. And for some of them, that was a bit of a struggle. She was a 25-year-old, somewhat attractive female, and I have freshmen, and freshman boys are freshmen boys all around the world. And, we had to have those conversations about, what is appropriate to say, what is appropriate to ask. I expect, some of the things that we're learning, this is novice level Spanish. So, yes, I said, I am going to allow you to ask her age, because that's something that you're learning, and she knows that. But that's not something that you would normally ask an adult female, and that would not be a polite thing to do. They took it upon themselves to ask her phone number, and we had another conversation about how that was less than appropriate, for a 14-year-old boy to ask an adult female for her phone number for dating purposes. So it really is a chance to get back into to face etiquette. I mean, netiquette and etiquette go hand in hand. So these are life skills. Some of the other things, when we are using different tools and they have to sign up for accounts, we'll use your school account so that you are protected, and anything you do, any information you give is protected under the umbrella of the school. There's one thing that we use, and they got a pop-up that said, 20% off. Well, what do I do? It's telling me 20% off. Well, you ask yourself first, 20% off what? And you're not going to pay anything. So you immediately navigate away from that, because anytime anybody is asking you for money, that is not something. So there's just a lot of learning things along the way. And I've seen, because their social media use on their own outside of the classroom really is very on the edge. So it's really critical that we teach them these things. Whereas if we avoid the use of social media altogether in our classrooms, they're never going to learn how to use these tools that they're already using. And some of them are already using them in ways that could get themselves into trouble. So it's really critical, and we have a responsibility, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So it sounds like you have quite a lively bunch of students. So,
Freshmen or freshmen.
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. So speaking of your students, so in your chapter, you write about the importance of amplifying student voice. So why is it important to amplify their voices? And what are some ways that you've done this?
Gosh, they don't think that anybody cares what they have to say. And to me, that really breaks my heart, because I've seen what other students have been able to accomplish. And I have seen other educators and adults respond to what kids do. They have a lot more power than they realize. And it's our job. I don't like to say empower, because to me, that's almost a little bit arrogant. They already have that power. We just need to remind them and show them that they do have it and how to use it effectively. So we're talking about doing this cookbook, and I have to keep re-explaining to them that they are going to have an actual audience, that we have a publisher and people are going to pay for this book. And they don't quite believe me. And I think until it's actually published and out there, that they probably won't believe me, because they've never been treated as anything but students. You do a project, you hand it in, the teacher grades it, and then it goes in the trash. And that's a cycle of meaninglessness. And they really need to have that authentic audience, and particularly in a world language class, their authentic audience, where they're able to use this language with people that, they need to use the language, or those people aren't going to understand them. So it's, they have voices, and it's a crime to let those voices go unheard.
Yeah, that is so true, and I love what you said about that. They already have the power, so
They do.
it's more than yeah, it's more than empowering them because I mean they already have it. So
Hmm.
definitely, definitely. All right. So what advice do you have for other educators based on your experiences in the classroom?
I would say don't be afraid, but at the same time, know the limitations of your particular job, your particular building, your particular district. And it's about the more I've thought about it and been in different buildings with different restrictions, creativity within constraints. And sometimes the constraints can actually grow more creativity because you have to think harder, work harder. Um, to work your way around, to find a workaround, to do what you want to do within the constraints. So definitely, I'm not advocating that you go out and break all the rules. And if your school, doesn't allow your students to have accounts, that you do it anyway. One thing that I've done is we have a class Twitter account. So the only way that, I'm the only one with the password, and we will have one or two students. For example, when we were doing the Skype call, I had two students that were on Twitter duty that day. So they were responsible for writing and sending out the tweets. And that was an idea that I got from our 25-year-old friend, Dean Gainey, who uses that in his elementary classroom because elementary students can't legally have social media accounts. But there are a lot of elementary teachers who are using social media very effectively to amplify their elementary students' voices within the COPA laws. And that's very critical, that you follow the law, but find something that will work so that your students' voices can be heard.
Absolutely. Well, definitely wanted to thank you for coming on here and for sharing your great insight. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you and doesn't know how, then please let us know. How can people get in touch with you online?
I am at MME Brady on Twitter, on Instagram, and MMEBrady at gmail.com on email.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. It was great as always chatting with you, and super excited for your chapter to come out and to hit the public at the end of December. So check her out in EduSnap 17. So this will be available as a podcast wherever you get your podcast within the next couple of weeks. And we'll be back actually in about an hour. So 58 minutes with Kathy Wolf and Christy Kate, who are also contributing authors of EduSnap 17. So definitely keep it locked. We will see you guys soon. Same bat channel, not the same bat time. 58 minutes from now. So come back and join us then. So
Thank you,
so
Sarah.
thanks so much.